So Unit 1, Activity 3 is all about how we use clothing to express ourselves. So we're going to be looking at this from a psychology perspective. And fashion terms that you should know for this activity include silhouette. So silhouette is a garment's basic outline. So if you were to trace around it, how that would look. And there are 5 major silhouettes that we'll be looking at, and you can see them below. We have a bell shape here with like a very wide skirt at the hips. We have A-line. We have hourglass, so that's where it cinches at the waist and creates like a Coke bottle kind of effect. And we have tubular here. So these silhouettes have been around for quite some time, and even though these pictures look kind of dated, you can still see these silhouettes in garments today. When we're talking about fashion, we need to talk about fashion swings because things go in and out of fashion depending on the time. So fashion swings are the changing of certain details on basic styles. So like a skirt is a style, but depending on the era, a mini skirt might be more fashionable than a maxi skirt or vice versa. Right now, I think we are more in like a long maxi skirt kind of fashion cycle. Fashion or garment style, on the other hand, is like different types of garments. So dresses, shirts, skirts, pants, jackets. So for example, jacket might have multiple different styles to it. So like a bolero jacket or a pea coat look totally different versus a trench coat. So these things are variants on a particular style. And when a style is accepted and purchased by the majority of a consumer group, it becomes a fashion. So when everyone was buying maxi dresses, then maxi dresses are in fashion. That's how that works. So we're starting to delve into the fashion cycle. The fashion cycle is the acceptance of a style, beginning with the introduction of the style and then moving throughout the growth and maturity and then eventual decline of the style. So there's no set time frame for a style to move through the fashion cycle. Styles are fashionable as long as consumers accept it and buy it. The fashion movement is a change in things that are considered fashionable. So one of the things that we should know when we're talking about fashion movement is the obsolescence factor. This is just a fancy word of saying that people reject these old items in favor of new ones. Even though the old ones might be perfectly fine, they're not in style anymore, so they're rendered obsolete. A fashion trend is the direction in which fashion is moving. So maybe it's not quite there yet, but it's there in certain circles, like with the upper class. Fashion leaders are people who push fashion trends. So they're people with enough fashion credibility and confidence that they can wear things that are fashion forward. Fashion leaders and trendsetters can be a term that is mixed back and forth. Fashion followers are people who wear fashion looks once they're accepted, but a trendsetter would wear it before it's accepted. Fashion motivators are people from visible sectors of society, so people that other people look to change their fashion style. Fashion laggers are people who adopt a style that is already on the way out. So if you look at, for example, like the styles at Walmart, some of those styles might be from last season or even the season before. Another fashion theory that we need to talk about is trickle up and trickle down. This is how fashion becomes popular, and we'll start with trickle down. Trickle down is when designers start fashion trends and then it trickles down to the middle or lower classes. So for example, someone who looks at the runway for spring 2018, that would be like the start of the fashion cycle. And then eventually over time, like in the summer or maybe even in the fall, people would start wearing that trend that came about right about now. Once the lower classes start adopting these trends, then upper classes change the look and it starts all over again. So once the common person ever, like if we're using the example of maxi dresses, once the common person starts wearing these, then maxi dresses will be on the way out and a new style will be on the runway. Trickle up is interesting because it's about street fashion. So it means that fashion is inspired by people on the street. So designers will look at what people are actually wearing and then redesign it for people with higher income. So, for example, the grunge look from the 90s, Chanel took that look that was already popular and then reinterpreted it for the runway. Jeans is a huge one. Jeans were originally worn by like workers, like farmers and gold miners, but the designer Calvin Klein reinvented them in the 1970s to be fashionable. So various social movements influence fashion. So hippies have influenced fashion. The environmental movement now influences designers to use bamboo and other more eco-friendly fabric and construction methods in their designs. So let's look at the fashion cycle here. In the introduction phase, there's the rise of fashion. It's where the garment becomes introduced by fashion leaders. So when Claire Danes wore that light up dress at the Met Gala, that's like the innovation. The rise is when it becomes more and more popular, and acceleration is almost at the peak. Like it takes us pretty much to the peak of when people are accepting this as a fashion. And then eventually it will start to decline, and then it will become obsolete. So all clothes are eventually rendered obsolete, and then they might come into fashion again. So that is all I've got. So fashion cycle and trickle up, trickle down theories are two things that you should know after watching this video.